Okay, welcome to the show. And this is I don't know what day it is today. We're not gonna release it today anyway. So I have Danielle with me, and she's somebody I met online, and she she I had heard that she's a conservative, so that's why I'm gonna have her on to talk about her opinions and her possible aspirations for the future. So welcome, Danielle.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. So, okay, you said you're originally from what state?
I'm originally from Missouri. It's like right in the middle of the United States.
Okay, and then you said you moved at some
I
point, right?
moved to Ohio. It's still a Midwestern state, but it's a little bit closer to the East Coast.
Right. So, how come you are a you're basically a Republican, correct?
Um, kind of. I mean, I mostly vote for Republicans, but it's
Okay.
mostly just because they agree more with my views.
Okay, but you said your family wasn't Republican.
No, they were Democrats. When I grew up and stuff, we kind of lived very conservatively,
Uh-huh.
but they just voted Democrats. I think mostly just because they were black, and that's what black people do. They just vote Democrat most of the time.
Most of the time.
Yes.
Is that something that because I see like if somebody's not towing that line that they get called Uncle Tom and things like that. Have you experienced any of that?
Oh yeah, like I get it like constantly, especially when I'm like online and everything. I've even had like Black Panthers threaten to come and find me. So
What?
yeah. Oh yeah. Like it's like a serious issue. I've been called, I'll just go down the list of a
Okay.
couple. Bedwinch, Uncle Tom, Coon, Tap Dancer, Oreo, not actually black, the white man's bee. Like it's just like tons of stuff. It's so bad.
Well, I only that experienced that once in U.S. Because I there was a guy whose last name was Kennedy, by the way, that I there was some disagreement on or other, and then I apologized, and then the last day he called me a house n word.
Oh
So
yeah, I forgot about that one. That was a good one. I forgot about that one.
that's a common one, isn't it?
It is very common, actually. Very. Oh, handkerchief head. That's another one. Yeah, there's like a list of them.
Do you know by any chance know Jesse Lee Peterson?
Yes, I do know
He
Jesse Lee
he
Peterson.
said he said he has the Coon of the Year award, like he has
Yeah,
that thing, which I
that
thought
guy
was so
cracks me
funny.
up. It's hilarious.
Okay, so how did your do you know how your parents then went from, because you said they went from voting Democrat to voting Republican at some point, right?
Yeah, so it was actually my mom. Because I asked her about this because I knew you were gonna ask. She said she watched one of the debates between Al Gore and George Bush, and when she was watching the debate, they asked George Bush questions, and he just answered the questions. And then when they asked Al Gore questions, he just like went on these long answers that weren't actually answering the question. And that's when she decided, well, I have to vote for this guy because he's telling me what he's going to do. He's answering the questions. And that was like her moment where she was like, wow, this is crazy.
Right. She was like, he lying. He's lying.
Yes. Yes.
So you went to so what school did you go to, if you're allowed to say?
College or high school?
Um, was high school politicized already? Like, did you?
No,
No.
I went
Okay.
to a private high school. It was a Christian school. So, no, we didn't have many issues
You
there.
got lucky.
Yes, I did.
Um, because I met one girl she was from Texas, and she said that the history class they had Howard Zinn, which is very iffy kind of history, which is
Hmm.
kind of fiction
Yeah,
apparently.
that does not shock me.
Right. So where did you decide to go to college then?
So I actually went to college in Louisville, Kentucky. I won't mention the school because I actually did enjoy my time there, and I don't want anyone to like hate on them, but it was a Catholic school, private Catholic school, as like one of the biggest ones inside of Louisville. So if you know Louisville, you know what school it is.
Right. So it's a small college.
Yeah, it's small. I think the maybe like the full school body is probably around like 7,000 to 10,000 students,
Okay.
or at least around the time that I was there. That's what it was.
Okay. So did you experience any let's backtrack because you went to when we spoke the other day, you told me that you went to a college that you really wanted to go to, but yeah, there was some problem there. So what
Yes,
happened?
I don't have a problem outing this school. They deserve it. So I went to American University in Washington, D.C. It was like my
Mm-hmm.
dream school. And I went on a college tour visit because I was like, I'm going to be a senator. This is my goal. I need to be in DC. I'm going to go to American University. Like, this was my whole plan. So I went to visit the school, and they kind of like give you these breakout like areas at lunch. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever department you're going to be in, you'll end up going and speaking with those professors while
Right.
you guys have lunch. So my mom and my aunt, they came with me, and we ended up meeting with one of the professors in the political science department. And he was this black guy. He seemed really smart, and I liked him a
Okay.
lot. And then we got into the topic of politics, and this guy just like flipped the script.
What
He
did you
just
say? What did you say?
I'm actually not even sure. It was probably something like Barack Obama isn't really going to be that great for black people or something like that. So
This
it
was
was
around
probably
2008. All right.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I said something like that, and this guy just like goes into this long tangent about how I don't know anything. I am completely misinformed. My family didn't teach me anything. This is a disgrace, and I don't know. And I was just like, wow, this was like
You
that
know,
was
you
pretty
know, you
crazy.
know what you should have done? Even though if this was 2008, I think it would still worked. You just could have recorded it.
Yeah, that actually would have been pretty funny just to like have to replay to everyone because you hear the story and it's like this did not happen to you. I'm like, yeah, it definitely happened. Um, but he just like he got so mad that he like got up from the table and like left me and my mom and my aunt there and was like gone just for me saying one small thing about Barack Obama.
Oh
That was
wow,
that. Yeah,
that's
it was
that's a
crazy. And
true
then
believer right there.
yeah, seriously. And that was like back in 2008. I never experienced something that extreme before. Like that was
Right.
pretty like
So,
wild to me.
so that's where you met the real left wingers. You met there in
Yeah,
Washington D.C.
that was my first encounter. Yeah.
Your first encounter. And now, do you think that things have gotten worse since then?
I'm going to say 100% yes. I think there is like no question that it got worse because if it was that bad and people didn't even know about it then, I can't imagine what students go through on campus now. Like I would never say anything on a campus just for like fear of reprisal.
Right. That's there are a few books like IC College Guide that are helpful, but I think many people do not know, and they've discontinued it since I think the last one was 2014 and 2015, and they really wait. I prepared. So I mentioned there's a College of the Holy Cross. I think this is in Massachusetts. Imagine the name, the College of the Holy Cross, and the weak points is it says a vapid one course religion requirement, which can be fulfilled but with a class on sacred gardens, which is not really religion. Sacred
Oh.
gardens is sacred gardens. Another weak point, an anti-Western Islamic studies course. And plenty of politicized disciplines such as women's and gender studies does not surprise me. And peace
Right.
and conflict studies, there's peace and conflict studies, also politicized, and environmental studies and African studies also does not surprise me. And also the last one says extensive gay activists and other socially libertine programming promoted by the administration. I kind of feel like that's the standard U.S. college is like it's expected that this is gonna happen. Like this, unless you go to a school that's It's rated on this college guide. It's called Choosing the Right College 2014, 2015. And it's, yeah, there's a few colleges that it rates that it's friendly towards people that are conservative. But like, I think 60% of the colleges, even on their list, is like, no, no go.
Yeah. Yeah, that really doesn't surprise me. I like to call colleges just free education camps, because that's really what they are. You got to think you don't sleep. In my school, at one point, it didn't matter what class that you went to, they all had to talk about the exact same things, at least at the beginning of the class.
What do you
So you
mean?
don't
What do you mean?
sleep. So when the whole like gay thing started, like, and it was like a really, really big deal. So I would go to my English class, and in my English class, well, it was literature, but when I would go into my literature class, at the beginning of class, we would have to like talk about current events and what's going on. So what we would talk about was gay marriage, gay rights, and all of the stuff that was going on. And then I would leave from that class and I would actually go to my statistics class. And at the beginning of statistics class, we had to
What?
go over current events. And in current events, they're talking about gay marriage and stuff like that again.
So every
Um,
class is politicized, even though it's kind of not, doesn't have anything to do with, like,
yes. Yes,
wow.
exactly. I remember it was like one week where it was like nonstop, and I was just like in like a fog because when you're in college, you're studying all the time. You don't get proper nutrition. You can barely sleep, so it's like
Right.
your brain is like being constantly bombarded, and
You are
you're like being
brainwashed,
there. You
basically.
go,
If
brainwashed. Exactly, and
Wow,
so
I've
it
heard
was
about
like
this, but this is actually, your case is really interesting. But you were strong enough to kind of resist that. But
I
I think people,
wasn't.
you
That
wasn't.
was the yeah.
Okay,
I
well, go ahead.
So one day I just called home. I was like, Mom, like, I feel like I'm going crazy because I had been like in like a mental fog for like, it was probably about 2 weeks, and everything was just like compound. I'm like, I know like some of the stuff they're saying is wrong, but like it's right. And then I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, like, I just need you to like verify some things for me. So this is wrong, right? And this is right. And she's like, Yeah, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I think they're just messing with my head here because you just like hear it constantly and it just plays over and over again. So
Oh my
if I didn't
gosh,
have my family, I would have probably been completely destroyed by the time I was in my sophomore year.
really? That's how pervasive it was even back then.
Yes.
And
Yes. It was really
what
bad.
did you study?
So I actually studied political science and organizational communications.
Right. So going back, the way you phrase it, the gay thing and all that, if you run for senator, you know what they're gonna say. They're gonna say homophobe. They're gonna say this, anti-gay rights. They're gonna say you wanna roll back society 60 years back to 1950s. Like things like that's what happens nowadays, and it's so
Yeah.
like so okay. What is your hmm, regarding because if you were, are you still planning to potentially run for senator one day?
Yes. I am planning on at
Okay,
some
which
point
state?
actually
Which
running.
state?
So currently Ohio, because that's where I am. But if I decide to
Okay.
move or something, I will run wherever I'm at.
Okay, Ohio is not that bad. In New York, I think you'd have a harder time.
Yes, I would have a very hard time in New York, California, Colorado, Illinois. I'd have a hard time any of those other places.
Can you imagine back in the day, like in California, they had Ronald Reagan as the governor.
I
I,
know,
ca- I
it's
cannot
amazing.
imagine now. Well, they had Schwarzenegger, but he couldn't do because you still have this the Senate, the state Senate, and that was predominantly I probably thinking Democrat. So
Hmm.
even if you are the governor there, if you don't have enough votes, then they can just say no, no,
Yeah, you
no.
can't really do anything.
Wow. So the thing is, so what do you think now? The political climate, the whole. We spoke earlier, and I said about NBA. It's becoming very woke, very kind of pushing the Black Lives Matter and all that, which I don't think is a good thing. Like I know the intention is good. Like they're saying that there's a few things happening that are bad, but then the Black Lives Matter organization, surely it's not good, is it?
No, so the actual Black Lives organization is not what the name implies. So if you're just like Black Lives Matter and we need to help Black people, kind of dig out of the hole that they're in right now, okay, I'm like 100% great. Like I'm okay with that. But
Mm-hmm.
the actual group doesn't stand for those things. They have like maybe like three pillars that they stand on. The first one is immigration for anyone. The second one is feminism. And then the last one is actually like it's like a homosexual slash transgender agenda in it. So when you read their platform, those three things are like weaved throughout the entire platform of Black Lives Matter. And those three things don't help Black people at all. Like, and so it's just like you're giving money to this group that is not actually trying to help Black people, even though that's what you want to do. I would prefer them give the money to someone else who actually might help kids, get them tutors,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. But, places like the NBA, the Major League Baseball, that's just not what's happening right now.
And the thing is, if you're against it nowadays, you're gonna be labeled as a bigot, racist, and even worse, depending on your race and whatever. But
Oh no, I've been called a white supremacist before. So I mean, and this is like
well, hold
recently
on.
within the last
For
couple
anybody
months.
that's like watching on video, she's a black woman. So for you, how does that even compute? That you are called a white supremacist? How is that possible?
So someone tried to explain it to me that I've been trained by white supremacy. So all of
Oh,
my
okay.
education is white supremacist. So it's like so permeated me that I am now a white supremacist. Yeah.
What education? You went to a liberal school.
I guess it wasn't good enough because maybe I went in 2008 instead of 2020. So
You're right. It wasn't good enough because it was unsuccessful at brainwashing you.
exactly. There you go. That's the answer.
And as far as the transgender issue, you are also uh, not with that agenda, and it seems very prevalent nowadays to push that. They have I think they have shows nowadays on TV where they promote even young kids to be dressed like that. So how did it get so far? Like, how did it get so far so quickly? First it became from Obama. I think in Obama in 2008, he didn't support gay marriage, and now where we are now at, like, what happened?
Yeah, I like to tell people, I was like, Barack Obama was such a great president that by the time he left office, people didn't know if they were men or women. So to me, I'm like, that just shows you exactly how good of a president he was. He wasn't, just so everyone gets that, in case you
Right,
don't get
right,
the
right.
sarcasm. But it really bothers me because if you're gonna do that and you're an adult, okay, I'm not gonna bother you, I'm not gonna say anything to you, but in your doing that, don't try to force me to accept it. And also don't try to force it on children so that they think something like that is normal,
Right.
that it's not like an
Right.
aberration of behavior or something, because it is. Like not everyone is like that. And I mean, there's bigger cultural problems because if you have so many people who are like homosexual or transgender, or they're in one of those different, what do they call them, alternative lifestyles, it stops like procreation. So like we don't make more humans, because if you're homosexuals, you don't make kids. If you're transgenders,
Right.
chances are you're probably not going to end up with a kid. I mean, the hormones and different things like that cause infertility. So I mean, you're not going to have kids of your own. So we're starting to see, especially in like our Western cultures, our birth rates are just like dropping like a rock. And when you're promoting these things, it kind of just, it starts to break down that like structure of society. You have
The
kids, they have kids, just
the
keeping
nuclear
your culture
family.
alive. Exactly.
I think also on the Black Lives Matter website, it's explicitly states it's against breaking down the nuclear family, which seems to
Yeah.
be a very Marxist thing to do. Just like let the uh, it takes like there's a saying, like it takes a village
Village
to
to
raise
raise
a
a
child,
child.
and
Yeah.
then Thomas Sowell said, but it takes a village idiot to believe it.
Yes, Thomas Sowell. Love that guy. He always has such a nice way of putting stuff.
And he was originally from the South, and then he moved to New York. But back in the day, Harlem had, for those of you who don't know, Thomas Sowell is a black economist from, well, essentially he grew up in New York, and he has still has a bit of a twang in New York, and even though he lives in Palo Alto, California, which is very fancy near Stanford. Um, so how have your views changed over the since leaving college and just being in the real world and just having a job and all that?
So I've gotten a lot more hardened in my views.
Yeah.
Like I hate to use this word because it's kind of a joke, but people get like so serious about it. But
Yeah.
like I become like a conservative Nazi. Like I'm like,
Whoa,
no,
whoa, whoa,
like
whoa. This is not good for your PR. So
no.
explain to the audience what it means.
So when I explain it, it's more like I've become more staunch in my beliefs than I was before. Just because I've gotten to spend a lot more time with people, actually watching them their behavior and the things that they do and what they'll do when there's like nothing restraining them.
Right.
Um,
So you would say you're socially conservative.
yeah, I'm completely socially conservative, like a hundred
Okay.
percent, like all the way to the right.
All the way to the right. Meaning, when you say, um, what do you say, socially, like conservative Nazi?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Like, what would you, as far as, let's go back to transgender issues. Like, would you forbid any transgender education in schools,
Yes,
public
100%.
schools?
Yes.
What about the gay marriage? If you had the opportunity, obviously, I don't think there's ever gonna be a day where they're gonna try to vote down gay marriage, but um, if you had the opportunity, would you vote, to abolish gay marriage, basically?
Yes.
Yes. I don't. To me, I disagree on that because I'm more socially liberal. I think as far as when it comes to the kids, I don't like that. I don't. I wouldn't like them to be, yeah, educated in that way, because like now they're trying to program kids and being like, well, you Joe, like, I think I saw a case where a kid, must have been like 7 or 8, the Lakers, the kid was drawing, I think it was yeah, it was a boy. He was just drawing colors of the Lakers, a jersey, a Laker, and the teacher was like, oh, I think he wants to be a girl, maybe he's questioning. I'm like, no,
He's a
no.
kid.
It's very worrisome, that.
Yeah,
So you are a Christian, yes?
I am.
What brand of Christianity would you say?
So I'm an evangelical.
Okay, okay, I'm not very well versed in evangelical. So what does that exactly mean?
So basically I am the brand of Christianity that believes in like spreading the gospel and sharing the gospel, evangelizing
Okay.
across the world, all that good
Oh,
stuff.
have you ever healed people?
Me? No.
Yes. No, I mean God through you.
Oh, no. No.
No,
No.
because I have friends that, I think I would call them evangelical as well, that go out and speak to people and try to sometimes pray for them, and yeah, I think it's a very strange thing, because you don't want to take credit for it if there's a healing, because you say,
Mhm.
well, God did it.
Yeah. Well, so just for me personally, the evangelical umbrella is like extremely wide. Like there's a lot of different types
Yes.
in there.
Yeah,
Me,
yeah.
I don't have a problem praying for people. Um, I don't go and pray for them that God will heal them and, try and have them healed on the spot. I just pray, that if it's God's will, please heal them, that kind of stuff. I'm probably a little bit more conservative in the way that I believe that as well.
Okay, so it's yeah, okay, so you don't, not like, oh, I command the Holy Spirit to heal you. You're not like that. You're like, if
No.
it's God's will, let it heal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It's because it's not really, you can't command as such. You
Yeah.
just like, it is God's will in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I mean, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But like, there's nothing I'm going to be able to say or do to make it happen.
Right. Um, yeah, as far as your electability now, if things don't change, the social conservative thing, you'd have a big problem. I think, what do you think of, okay, let's go just straight into the Trump's presidency. So what did you think, did you think he was going to get elected?
I actually was a big like I love Trump. I was a supporter of him. Not from the beginning though. I started supporting him. He had a rally in Chicago and
Mm,
they had to shut the rally down because protesters came. They were like beating up people, breaking up the rally, breaking into the building and all of that stuff. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's like so crazy. I can't believe those people did that." Cuz that was the first time we had experienced something like that on like a political scale.
mm.
And so for me, it was like, wow, this is like, I can't even believe this. And I turned on the news and I was watching the news, and all of the other candidates blamed Donald Trump for it. And I was like, hold up, like, you're a Republican. And like, we don't believe in like blaming one
Oh, the
person for
Republican.
someone else's actions.
Right. So
And
all the Republicans attacked him because
yes,
I think he must have been already rising in polls. So they saw the opportunity and just like went after him.
jumped on it. Yeah, and I was my governor at the time was actually running, and so I was probably going to support him. And the second he did that, I was like, I can't even believe this. This is insane. I'm voting for Donald Trump because clearly, if everybody is against him like this, there's something there. So I was like,
Kucinich, right?
no, John Kasich.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
those
Kasich,
weird K
right.
names. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I thought he was Kasich. I thought he was promising, but then I saw the debates and Trump just seemed to destroy everybody. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think it's something about growing up in New York and his
Yeah.
personality, and I think as well he studied persuasion a lot,
Mhm.
and also he's got a lot of experience with the media, so
Mhm.
all these things worked in his favor, and he's very competitive. He's bar none like competitive as nobody's business, and he just, wow, it was just a train wreck for the rest of them. He just like barbs here and there.
Yeah, it was so bad. He has this like he's really good at picking out like what's wrong with you
Oh yeah.
and then like making it like this huge issue. So
Right.
like John Kasich, when he was like eating pancakes at some place and he was like eating these giant like bites of it. And of course everybody's like, wow, that's like a really big bite of pancake. But Donald Trump brings it. He's like, this dude's just like shoveling it in his mouth. And he was like, I looked at my son and I was like, remember, Baron, small bites. And I'm like, this is like the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my life because everybody watched him do it and we were all like, dude, cut those up.
You remember Rand Paul? He was like when he criticized him and about something, and he's like, and Trump is like, well, I could criticize your looks because there's plenty of subject matter there, and I thought that was just devastating, like that line.
It was. I mean, he just like ended so many people in those debates. My favorite, my absolute favorite was Jeb Bush. I am not like on board with like dynasties at all. Like, I don't care who you are. If your father was president, nobody in your family gets to be president, at least for two generations of people. And so Jeb Bush is like talking and he gets a little excited and Trump just turns to him and he's like, oh, look who showed up today. He was like, did they tell you to take your glasses off too? I'm like, dude, who says that? Like, it was just, it was amazing. I had never seen anything like that before.
He's even though he's from, he lives in Manhattan, he has this sense of somebody that's from a third world country and has the wits about him.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's genetic, or maybe it's part talent or whatever it is. I think he's half Scottish as well, and Scottish have that. I know the Scottish want They don't having
Don't
lived
want
in
to
Scotland,
associate.
having lived in Scotland for many years. Scotland wants they don't want to associate themselves with Trump. But the fact is that he's got the the Scottish wit about him,
Yeah.
more so than from the German side, I think. Although Germans have witty in a different way. Anyway, be that as it may. So you said, oh, the Michael Brown thing. You said that you were raised in a similar area.
Yeah, so where I grew up when I lived in Missouri, it's actually right next to Ferguson. I actually think that because the school districts are so close, it's the Ferguson Florissant School District.
Right.
I went to schools in Florissant and Ferguson because the kids go back and forth. And so that's where I grew up. I grew up right there in St. Louis. Well, it's actually
Ni-
right outside of the city,
nice
but right
place.
there.
Nice place.
It used to be. So when I was growing up, it was a very nice place. Like, uh, um, at the risk, I'm not trying to sound like racist or anything, but it was predominantly white. There were very few black people. So when my family moved in, they were like some of the only black people in the area at that time,
Mm-hmm.
or at least on that like main road that runs through there. It's
Right.
Florissant Road, and it just started to change over time. So if you go there now, it looks the same, but it's like so different from what it was when I was a kid.
So I imagine all the politics in the city is Democrat, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like you're not voting any Republicans in at all in that whole area. They're all Democrats. Like there's nothing you're gonna do about that.
Okay, so why is it that so many cities are like Democrat? I don't know if Salt Lake City is, maybe it's not, but that's the only city that comes to mind that could potentially be a Republican, um, because the Mormons are so usually socially conservative as well. So Utah is more, I think, conservative than most states. But why do you think most cities are so liberal?
I think it's mostly because a lot of the areas have a lot of diversity. So, like, you have people from different countries, people of different colors, and a lot of them come from other areas and they believe differently from the people in their area. So,
Right.
they all gather in the cities where they feel like they can be freer or be themselves. And I think
Well, isn't that a good thing though?
I don't think it always is. I think
The,
sometimes it definitely is. So like say you're in the middle of some tiny town in the middle of Texas
right.
and you're a homosexual or something like that. So when you turn like 20 or something, you decide to leave, go to New
Is it
York or
like
something like that.
I'm getting out of this place?
Yeah, so for some of them, I think it is good because for
Mm.
them, at least like mentally, they'll feel better. So in that way, it can be good. But I think in a lot of other ways, it doesn't help. But I think a lot of the cities are Democrat because the Democrats have done a very good job of deceiving the people on what Republicans do, say, all of that.
Well, they're great at promoting themselves, and
Yes.
um, there's a book called "Do-Gooders: How Liberals Hurt Those They Claim to Help."
Yeah.
And but I think it's always like that. The I have a guest on. Well, the show will be on soon, but it's he talked about how the intention is good, but the results are not always like maybe sometimes the opposite.
Yeah, it's like that almost all the time. So I'll just use like St. Louis as an example. So you have so many people, they'll end up on like government assistance and stuff like that. And those people, it's kind of like it takes like whatever like drive you had inside of you
Hmm.
out of you. I guess because you're getting paid for, someone's paying for your house, they're making sure you're getting food and
Right.
stuff like that. So it just kind of like takes that like fight, to be alive, to do stuff, to make stuff out of you because you don't have to. And I think for a lot of those people, they just kind of like end up in that cycle and then they have kids and their kids end up in that cycle. So
You
it
mean the
just like,
welfare also influenced them as well?
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, they're giving people stuff and that's what it
Right.
feels. You're just getting stuff. So people, they're just, it's like, you don't do anything. I noticed that in St. Louis, a lot of people like it's almost like they're stuck. Like they don't end up like doing much of anything else with their lives. And I think it's just like being there in that environment and,
Hmm.
you know, it's just not much else to do and they just get stuck like that. So I don't know if it's like that in a lot of the other big cities, but I know St. Louis for sure. It's you just kind of get stuck.
Sounds very grim. Like
Yeah.
it's went way down.
Yeah, no, it's really sad. And then you get to school, and in school, they're not necessarily teaching you that you can kind of like get out of that or become something great. It's more like, well, you're in America. America is racist. They're holding you down because you're black. So it's like no matter what you do, unless we destroy this whole thing, you're never going to get out of that. So it's like, why would I try to do something? You just tell me it doesn't matter what I try. I'm never going to succeed.
So that's the attitude. Basically, they're saying
Hmm.
you are a victim no matter what. So
Yeah.
before even people try, they're like, "Oh, I'm the victim." So it's almost like the entitlement because you some people because of the I guess you said media and the schools and everything and reinforces and probably a lot most black people are in US seem to be Democrat as well, so that kind of reinforces the victim narrative. So where do
Hmm.
you think how do you think this can be changed? Obviously Kanye West and a few other people have Candace Owens as well, like are the voices for black conservatives, but how do you think that can cycle can be changed?
You know, I've been thinking about it a lot. I think the number one thing that'll help it change, I think people need to have their dads in their house because like your father like gives you like a kick in the pants. He gives you structure. He like lets you know that like life is crap sometimes, but it's not someone's fault. You just need to get up and try something else. And
Right, right. Well, you have, I don't know if you saw that there's a old debate between Thomas Sowell and somebody from the government, this lady, and then she was like, what are we gonna do with the bottom 10%, Sowell? And he was like saying, well, the welfare is actually hurting them because at the time, I think I think this was the late 70s or something. The the rate of unmarried couples and the rate of single mothers actually was going up in the black community and it was like 30% at that point, but now it's like 70%
70, yeah,
because of that
72.
policy. And she could still, to this day, that lady, if she's still alive, she could say, well, what about the bottom? We're just trying to help them. But yes, but inadvertently, you're trying to hurt them.
Yeah.
You know you're trying to, but inadvertently with that policy, you are hurting them.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see it. I think the biggest problem in like Black America right now is that there are not like that many fathers in the home. Like me, my parents, they got married. They were married for I think like 8 or 10 years, and then they had like 5 kids. So it's just me and my
Wow.
brothers. And they ended up getting a divorce, but I still saw my dad like a lot, and I
Yeah.
knew my dad loved me. He spent time with us. We would go and spend our summers with him down in St. Louis. So it wasn't one of those things where like my dad was completely absent. But I can't imagine not having him at all from the time that I was born.
Yeah, like a lot of people grow up without their dads, and I don't think that can does a lot of good things. That doesn't
No,
do.
no. Mothers are great, but I think there's just certain things that a man instills in children that they absolutely need to develop properly.
So, what do you think that on the government level? What do you think could be done to reverse kind of this? It seems almost like a defect has been the anti-black law of like the welfare state, let's say.
I think honestly, and I know people are going to hate me for this, I think you do need to roll back some of the welfare provisions. I think if you're going to have welfare, these people need to be able to get it, even if there is a father in the house or a man in the house with them,
Mm.
because a lot of them you can't get it if there's like a man in the house.
Right, right.
So
Yeah, in the early days, they went around and see if there was a single mother, she would get the money, and she wasn't. And then people caught on to it, and there was more single mothers. I'm like, incentives, hello.
yeah, yeah. So you definitely need to have the father in the house, and I think they definitely need to fix the education system, because you can't give people a dire, grim, like, prognosis of the rest of their life before they even get started. um if you do that, I mean, it's just not going to turn out well for them. And I
Right.
also think in schools, and this is just me, I think they probably need to let kids start working earlier. Like, give them like some job and to start teaching them more about
Interesting.
finances before they, get out in the world.
Oh, you mean I thought you meant to lower the working age.
Oh no, I mean that too. I think people need to
You
start
mean that?
working around like
But okay,
12.
okay. You said a lot there. I want to go back to you said for the welfare. You said that you would reward people that had both parents in the house.
Yes.
But then that in the flip side, that means you're punishing single mothers or single fathers if there's.
That is the idea. Like, you need to feel some pain because you made a bad choice. And that's the thing. Like, the whole point is to get people in the mindset of making better choices. So that means if I'm going to sleep with this guy and get pregnant, we better get married, because I'm not going to be able to take care of this by myself.
Yeah, but the
See,
guy's gonna go. He's gonna be in another state tomorrow.
and I think it's going to stop, like, because here's the thing. That's how society was before we started doing this welfare system the way we did. And I think if we kind of correct that, or at least some of that, it'll fix a lot of those issues.
Mm. I think just removing the incentive and having like a general safety net versus
Hmm.
rewarding single motherhood, I think that would be do wonders, you know.
Yeah, I had a professor. I think he had moved from somewhere else, and he hadn't had a job for a while, and so they needed to get like benefits just for a little bit, and until he could find some work or something like that.
Hmm.
And he was denied, and he had like a wife and I think 2 kids, and so for him, they couldn't get any benefits or anything like that, and they just needed help just for a short amount of time. So to me, that seems like crazy. Why wouldn't you give them just something to tide them over until he gets a job? Because it's not like he wasn't looking.
Right.
um so
Because he was
stuff like
there,
that, I would
but
change that.
because the man was there, the
Yes.
state was like, or the federal. I don't know where is it. The federal government that gives the welfare.
They actually have, so they have like state and federal, so it's
Okay.
both of them. Yeah.
Would you say that welfare state has gotten worse over the years, especially probably during the Obama? It probably expanded
Yes, I definitely think it's gotten worse. Because if I'm not mistaken, they took away a lot of work restrictions. So you had to like be looking for a job or working a certain amount of hours
before Obama.
before Obama. Yeah,
Okay, and
and
then
they
after
rolled those back.
it was like doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like a free for all.
Wow. So did Trump attempt to change it? I don't know. It wasn't on his agenda, but it
No,
hasn't changed it. Yeah,
no.
that's a tough thing to tackle.
Yeah.
Maybe in this, if there's a second term to
No, I doubt he's gonna do it, because the first thing that's gonna happen is the Democrats he's trying to take away your benefits. He doesn't like you. He hates black kids, and he wants them to starve. Like, it's just gonna go crazy the second he even starts to do it. So I can't imagine that they would even try and tackle that.
but they're already saying that he wants to.
That
So
is true.
they're already saying he's I remember I was in Israel, and this is a true story. I was in a Holocaust museum, really sad. But the thing that upset me was there was this black woman, and she was looking at the scene, all the carnage left by the Nazis and all the dead people, and she was like, and this is before Trump got president, when he was president elect,
Hmm.
and she was like, "This makes me so sad because it reminds me of Donald Trump." And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
On what grounds are you saying this?" And
Yeah.
obviously, it's been proven wrong. He's not. He's not. Unless there's a wide conspiracy that there's underground, work camps or whatever, that they're gassing people somewhere.
Well,
There's none of
technically,
that.
we have concentration camps. According to Alexandria Occasio Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar, our detention centers on the border for people who cross illegally are concentration camps.
Got it.
Yeah.
So they are, but so they're detaining people that are not citizens, and then they are
Yeah.
illegally kind
Yeah.
of. Oh man, what do you think of Cortez? A lovely woman, huh?
Um, she's all right. She is the reason, like, I would have just completely walked away from politics completely because I'm just like, this stuff is trash. These people are crazy. Everyone's nuts. But, like, I can't imagine 100 of her in Congress. Like, the thought of that really scares me. Like, what's left of my country will be completely destroyed.
Right. But
And
you
I
know what?
just,
You know what happens when you run for office? They come after you and everything that you've done bad, and even they make stuff up like about Trump. They
yeah.
try to make stuff up and see if it sticks. You know.
Yeah. Well, fortunately for me, there's like, I don't do anything bad. Like, when I was like 12, I was like, I'm going to be a senator. So, like, I did like nothing wrong. Like, I don't even drink. I don't do anything because I was like, I need to be like squeaky clean. So when I run, no one will have any dirt on me because there's no dirt.
No sexual harassment. You didn't harass
No.
any guy there. Not
I
still.
try to refrain from that.
But still, I think okay. Going back to the social policy, I think that's the thing because I follow politics obviously, but I think being socially conservative is probably the most unelectable thing right now. Unless you're in Utah, maybe that would work. But that's a hard sell, I would say.
I think it is, but I also think that most of what I believe is more common sense. It's not like something that's completely off the wall. And especially with like what's been going on now, I think people are looking for something that's more normal or like more traditional because everything's just like flown so far. Like off the wall and turned into some giant monster.
Right.
We can't control anything. Nothing looks normal anymore. They're like burning down cities, looting these stores, and then talking about some it's reparations. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Half of these people weren't even here in America. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's just like crazy. So I really think a lot of people are like, okay, we just need something like normal, just normal.
Yeah, going back to the traditional America before 1960s.
Yeah. Well,
Minus the
not everything
minus
before.
minus the let's for everybody that's listening, not everything was better before 1960s.
Yeah, not everything. Like, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Right. Well, obviously, to grant everybody like access to college and all that,
Yeah.
equal rights under law, that's
Hmm.
important. But as
Yes.
far as other stuff, America used to be way more socially conservative. But I don't know if that's ever coming back in such a way. I think it maybe it's gonna be more normal as far as like they're not gonna push transgender on people. I think that's just abhorrent. That they should be and I've heard rumors that maybe people are like in years when people will be like, well, I've been misled, and they're gonna start suing, teachers unions and things like that. They're gonna start suing their own schools, and that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, I think that's true because, like I said, I just think college specifically is like a concentration camp. It's like a re-education camp. It just gets in your mind. It just changes you. But I think our lower school systems like feed into that.
Right.
Just an example of it. I went to school, and from the time I was a kid, like they were just like, well, you're gonna go to college and you're gonna study something and you're gonna become something great and you'll make more money. So they don't teach you about finances. They don't teach you
Yes.
about loans.
Right.
They don't teach you about anything that would actually go into making that decision of where to go to college. But then they're like, you turn like 17 and they're like, have you taken your SATs, ACTs? Which colleges have you applied to? Have you applied for these type of grants? And like they throw all this stuff at you, but
Right.
still
Right.
no one explained any of the financial stuff to you. So you just go out and you're like, oh, well, I'm supposed to go to college. So yeah, I'll sign this paper. And next thing you know, you're like $100,000 in debt because no one explained to you how the whole process works. And I think it's like, I don't even think it's just with the finances. I think it's with a lot of things in life. They don't teach you or prepare you for that next step or just going out and being productive at all.
Right. I have one recommendation. Maybe this will be wasteful spending, but if you do, I think 1 hour of chess education um, per week would do wonders for young kids growing up. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Armenia has that in their education system. They have an hour or so of chess where kids like learn to play chess. And there was fun. I was watching this video, and there was this young girl. She was like 8 years old, and she was starting to beat her grandmother, in chess.
Oh wow.
So,
Wow. That's
so
pretty cool. I think it would definitely help with like reasoning skills,
hmm
logic, even just like strategy. Because, it's one of those things like this leads to that, leads to
right,
that.
right,
So then
right,
you kind of understand like my decisions have consequences. If I do
right.
this, then this will happen.
But thinking of if good school versus parenting, I think parenting always wins if there's both
Yes.
parents. And that's the thing. That's the welfare state destroyed the black family.
Yeah,
Like
it
over the
definitely
years,
did.
just even the whites, on the other races, like because of welfare, the rate of single mothers is skyrocketing, or at least
Yeah.
increasing on the increase.
I try to tell people that. So like when I talk to people, I'll tell them like if you want to see what the end of this looks like, look at any inner city across America. Because that is what they're doing to everyone else now. Like that same stuff that they pushed with black people back right after the 60s, they're pushing it with everyone else.
Right.
So what happens then is going to be what happens to you. That's going to be the end result.
Yeah, it's a grim picture. I think Trump is now changing a lot of things, but I've never seen anybody being so attacked.
Yeah.
Bush was attacked a lot, and I thought very excessive. But then when it came to Trump, it's like, oh my God! Even before he got in, he's a
Yeah, this
Nazi.
is
He's
like a
this and
whole
that.
nother game. Yeah. It's not even the same at all. I don't know. I think Bush kind of had it easy.
You think
Like,
so?
I think probably the worst thing that happened to him was they called him like Hitler. But I don't think it was nothing like what's going on right now.
Well, yeah, but
Nothing.
it's 100 times worse what's going on now.
Yeah.
And but Bush was like, also he didn't fight back. He was like, well, let them say what they say. But
Yeah.
Trump, I think he's fighting the evil forces, and that's tougher. And also
Yeah.
the media has gotten way worse. So
Oh yeah.
if he was like Bush, he would get run over. He would get run over. He would not get elected, and that's the thing people I think don't understand. It took a
Yeah.
personality like Trump to get elected. Otherwise, it's not possible. You can't
Yeah.
just be apologetic and backtrack. Like if somebody let's say you're in a debate and somebody would attack you for being anti-gay, for being transphobe, all that, and what would you do? Like that's the thing that would happen, like right off the bat.
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say was if you're an adult, I don't care what you do. But when it comes to kids, we can't push this stuff on our kids. And then because I know people would hate this, but I would be like, listen, as far as science goes, this stuff does not lead to the best results in somebody's life. So I'm not saying you can't do it, but I'm just saying don't try and push it on other people. It's that simple.
All right. Well, I think people will not say I don't want to offend people, but say it anyway. I think people will be offended anyway, so you might as
Yeah.
well say it.
I do that all the time. I'm like really offensive. My whole family is actually my mom, my brothers. We're just like,
But I think you were lucky that you were raised in a family that was. You said you went to a private high school.
I did. I went to a private high school.
You see,
Well,
that's
actually, so when I moved up here, so from the time I moved up here, I was like 10. So from fifth grade till when I graduated, it was a private school.
and that's very expensive.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's not cheap. It's like more than going to public school.
Right. Would you support like school vouchers, like that everybody can choose private or what do they call it? The word escapes me now. The charter schools. Sorry, yeah, charter
Yeah.
schools.
I would definitely support that because I know public schools, and they're not always teaching or giving the best to the students.
Right.
So to me, I would definitely allow that, because I think people, especially when we have like unions and stuff like that, they get a little too comfortable in what they're doing, and no one tries to like make it better. So if your kids are not being taught the best, I think you
Mm.
should go ahead and be able to take them wherever you want to.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. And that would also create a lot more schools that are actually religious and have prayer and all that stuff. I think
Yeah.
that would be good. But I think if you are really interested in running for office, I think can I give you an advice?
Yeah, sure.
I think you could the sooner you start the better, because even if you have a failed run, you're gonna learn so much from that experience. I think just like with anything, even if you start doing something in you uh, a short movie or whatever, even if you fail doing that, you learn something, and the experience might be worth in gold. So maybe just because, like, the thing is, I found with politics, if people like you, like your message and all that, it doesn't really matter where you come from, because they will, nowadays in the time of YouTube and Facebook, like, people will watch your videos and be like, oh yeah, I hope she does well. Even if you don't do well, then the next time you're already known a little bit, so you start from a higher perch.
Yeah. So you're like kind of building up a base.
Yeah, well, because I think a lot of you have to have a mass movement, you have to have a brand, you have a personal brand to get elected nowadays, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. I think about that all the time. I don't know how I'll end up getting elected, but at some point, probably within the next 2 years, I'll probably go ahead and run for something, because most of the stuff that people are up for now, it's like happening this year. Our election cycles are kind of like every 2 years.
Every two
So,
years, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I really wish you well, and I hope you actually run. That would be interesting. And is this your first kind of media appearance?
Yes, it is my first media appearance. Yeah.
On the All That Jazz podcast.
Yes.
So yeah, it was amazing having you on. I think you should maybe start something like this, because then
Mhm.
you get your views out. I think what was it? Ronald Reagan had a radio show between when he was governor and before he became president. So he
Oh,
would
was
talk
that
in
his
politics.
fireside chats? I think that's what it was, or
Did,
something
did
like
he
that.
have? I don't know.
It was something
Isn't that
like that.
FDR? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it
But
was one
he
of them.
he did have some radio show. I don't know how long that was, but he got to practice a little bit on the message and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think honing the message and all that, that's even though, but then Trump didn't do that, but he's a special case. He's just
Yeah.
like,
I think everybody knew exactly who he was, because I mean he had the Apprentice show. So everybody knew him from that. And then I mean he's got like these giant buildings everywhere. So that kind of helped too with the name recognition.
yeah, he's and he was saying since the 80s, I don't want to run, but I feel like I'll have to. So he
Yeah.
was like, it was almost like, I think it's blasphemous to say, but it was his destiny to become president.
No, I think you're definitely right on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was gonna happen.
So on that note, we shall conclude this podcast. Thank you, Danielle, for
Thank you for having me. Thanks for the
and
opportunity.
I'm gonna plug your Twitter and all that. Do you wanna? What's your Twitter?
So you can catch me on Twitter. My handle is at Minx C-SPAN. MINXCSPAN. I'm really active on there.
You're
So if you
active
get
on
cursed
C-SPAN.
out, no,
You like C?
on Twitter. I do love C-SPAN though. I used to watch it.
Okay,
That's why I put
that's
it
why
on
you
there.
changed your name. Okay.
Exactly. But if you catch me on Twitter, I apologize if I end up cursing you out or something like that. I'll try to be nice. It's just really fun. I just enjoy messing with people and trolling people on there. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it does not help your electability if you curse people out. So that
I'll try to
that is your
refrain,
one vice, maybe.
Yeah, going forward, I'll try to bring that down just a little.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the show. I really glad we connected.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.